Getting set for Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final alongside Pierre Lebrun. Gino, miss you today. We're thinking about you, buddy. Pierre, some interesting moments at the morning availability today. Optional skate for the Oilers, Connor McDavid, was on the ice, and then he also spoke with the media. We heard Connor Brown echo McDavid's sentiments from the other day about dragging Florida back to Edmonton, and then McDavid, there was some funny comments about that. This Oilers team trying to keep it light, and the theme is clearly to just bring them back to Alberta.
But in all seriousness, the pressure in this series has been on Edmonton from the get-go. They go down 2-0 in this building at the start of the series. Then they really, really need a win in Game 3 at home. Can't pull it off. The Oilers have been under the duress this entire Cup final. If the Oilers pull this off tonight here in Game 5 with the Panthers and the Cup in the building, the pressure meter clearly shifts. And, you know, Ryan, I wrote this piece in The Athletic yesterday where Justin Williams and Jared Stoll talked to me about the 2014 Kings. It's very rare to come back from 3-0 down. Only 4 teams have ever done it. But they both said the same thing. Game 5 on the road in San Jose is where the entire series shifted for the LA Kings that year, because you're going in their building when the other team thinks they're going to end that thing, and then they could feel the Sharks really feeling it the rest of the series. That's what Edmonton is trying to pull off here tonight.
What do we think of what the Panthers might bring tonight? Maybe compare that to what they brought in game number 4. The Cup in the building for the first time for that group. Chance to open it up, bring it out onto the ice. And they admitted that, you know, maybe it got to them a little bit. Do we think it'll be significant, the difference in what the Panthers are able to muster here in Game 5?
I think the Oilers are going to have to survive the first 5 minutes. I think the Panthers are going to come out of the gates and try to tilt the ice, get that forecheck going, bang bodies, and probably play their best hockey that we've seen in a bit here since Game 3, because they know that they can take Edmonton out here early in Game 5 if they set the tempo. I just don't, you know, it's one thing to want to do that, but I think the Oilers, you can hear Chris Knobloch talk about the fact that he expects that from the Panthers tonight. They've talked about that internally with the Oilers, is to survive the first few minutes, and I think that's true.
I think there was a critical line change that was made in Game 4 when Chris Knobloch, he had a lot of power up on that top line. Remember, it was Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. They were so good all year long. Finally made the decision to give Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins a little more oomph on that wing. I think it definitely helped spread the offense out, gave them more dangerous lines on the ice more often. But what changes here, Pierre, is that he no longer has last change. So he built that third line to take on Barkov's line, and they did quite a bit in game number 4. That shifts here. I'm not sure how much it'll change the in-game dynamic. The Oilers figured out the formula at home. They're going to have to figure it out here on the road without last change.
Yeah, Paul Maurice will want more of Barkov on McDavid in this game whenever he can get it, although, as we've spoken of before, really Gustav Forsling is the player that matters the most for the Panthers coaching staff as far as the matchup to Connor McDavid on the back end. But it does matter. I mean, you're right. Henrik's line has been a terrific story here of late. It's given the Oilers more stretch in their lineup. They're less top-heavy right now in their last game and a half, because I go back to really a third period of Game 3 when the offense finally woke up. Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, Florida right now, to me, they look like a team the other day that knew they had 60 people, friends and family, on a charter flying in. You could say what you want. They've never been there before. And I think it was, in many ways, a distraction for them. Now they've parked that. Now they've lived it. They'll be ready for tonight.
Let's discuss the goaltender. Stuart Skinner's playoffs, there have been some highs, there have been some lows. He's always shown that he can rebound nicely. Talked yesterday about what happened in the Vancouver series, losing the net for a couple of games and how it pissed him off. And he's been really good since. He's been able to lock it down. He's been particularly good the deeper that series have gone. On the other side, Sergei Bobrovsky might have played his best game in Game 1 of this series. Shaken a little last game, taken out of the net last game. What do you expect from Bobrovsky with the lens of last year's final and when it started to get away from him a little bit then, too?
I expect him to bounce back. I mean, listen, he had a tough Game 1 against the Boston Bruins as well in the second round, and he never looked back after that. But the big thing with him, and we've talked about this before, Ryan, is that the Panthers internally always monitor his energy levels. You know, he's 35 years old. He'd be 36 in September. There's always a concern, I think, about his workload, and that's why they closely monitor that during the regular season. And I think, frankly, he ran out of steam last year in the Cup final, carrying that team to the Cup final.
Right.
Here's what's big. Double off days here before Game 5. We always talk about how that's huge for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl because they play so many minutes for the Oilers. There's no player in this series that benefits more from double off days before this game tonight than Sergei Bobrovsky. I think that's huge for him. Had this game been last night, maybe he's not 100%.
Well, he did get half a game off last game.
On top of it, yeah.
On top of it.
So 2.5 days, really.
He'll be well rested for sure. You want to talk Conn Smythe?
Why not? I mean, I think that...
You already had to vote once.
Yeah, so the way it works for people watching is that, and I'm part of the committee, there's 17 of us who vote for the PHWA. You have to... Well, I like to pick your brain, though. That's true. We have to submit our votes between the end of the second period by the halfway mark of the third period, all 17 members on the Conn Smythe committee. And you have to vote every single clinching game. Even though the Oilers were up the other night, we still have to submit a vote just in case Florida came back. So we'll vote again tonight, regardless of the score. But what I think is going to be interesting is that now that the Oilers have not been swept, pretty hard to put a player from the Oilers on your 3 names on your ballot if you're getting swept.
Right.
I think Connor McDavid re-enters the conversation at least somewhere on our ballots potentially. You have to put 3 names on your ballot. Again, if it ends in 5, it's going to be a Florida Panther that wins the Conn Smythe, and I think it's likely Barkov. But as the series goes on, suddenly Connor McDavid's stature, given his incredible postseason and the
enters
points
the
he's put up,
chat in a different way.
Absolutely.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Let's just have a quick little back. I'll just play devil's advocate on a couple of guys. You talk about Barkov. Forsling has played as many minutes, if not more, against the best players on the other team. More.
Yeah.
Well, he has played more.
Yeah.
And had those tougher matchups. So could there be an argument for Forsling even ahead of Barkov?
So, listen, I wrote this last week. When it looked like it could be a sweep, the 3 candidates for sure for me were Barkov, Bobrovsky, and Forsling. Forsling absolutely deserves to be in the conversation, has played the most minutes for this team, but also the toughest minutes for this team, as you said. And he's been phenomenal. But I also know that the Panthers feel that Barkov has done everything at both ends of the ice throughout the entire playoffs. I mean, Kucherov, Pasternak, Panarin, all these guys were held down by the defensive work of Barkov as well, in conjunction with Forsling. And, I've always said this about the Conn Smythe playoff MVP. It's the most counterintuitive trophy in hockey. It's so hard to pick one guy when it's the most team sport alive.
Right.
And, there's been some tough debates over the years. Last year was a good debate. Marchessault won deservedly, but a lot of people like Mark Stone, like Aiden Hill, and you get a lot of those debates every year, no different than here if Florida wins tonight.
Before McDavid put up his huge night in Game 4, I would suggest there could be some debate as to who the most valuable Oiler had been.
That's where I thought you were going at first.
Well,
yes.
Leon Draisaitl, obviously he's gone a little dry here. Evan Bouchard has had a whale of a playoffs as well, so maybe even a little debate there on the Oiler front. But the sheer number of points, the assists, his performance to help the team stay alive, I think definitely something to be said there.
And I think he's been – I know there have been some quieter moments, especially in the second round against Vancouver, but I think McDavid's been their best player in this final. Yeah,
he's been really good at both ends of the ice for sure. Bit of news from practice. We don't expect there to be any lineup changes for the Edmonton Oilers, but Evander Kane was on the ice. Skated for a little bit, Pierre. You were watching him. What did you see? He looked pretty good.
He kind of looked like he's feeling better. I'm not a doctor, but
was
honestly,
in good spirits.
But honestly, you kind of look to see if he takes a break and does some of this. None of it. He was kind of freewheeling it out there.
He certainly looked better than the last time we saw him on the ice. He was kind of doubled over in pain and wincing when he was shooting. He was in good spirits, quite jovial as he was skating with the other Black Aces. Chris Knobloch said yesterday the chances were good that the Oilers could get Evander Kane back at some point in this series. So I don't think it'll be tonight, but it'll be something we keep an eye on moving forward. Will it end, or will we get dragged back to Alberta? Well, either way, I'm going back to Alberta. We'll see if we're dragging you with me. I don't think kicking and screaming would be fun.
I'm good either way.
All right, sounds good. We will check in post-game. Make sure, keep an eye on tsn.ca and YouTube. Lots of game day coverage across the network.